He froze mid-step as the rustling grew louder. From the underbrush, two amber eyes locked onto his. A bear, and it wasn't running. It was curious, cautious, and somehow, watching him as if deciding whether he was friend or foe. Alex had been hiking for hours, the trail winding through dense pine forest, when the first hint of movement caught his eye. He paused mid-step, adjusting the straps of his backpack, the crunch of dry leaves underfoot suddenly deafening in the quiet of the woods. A rustling sound came from just beyond a cluster of moss-covered boulders. At first he thought it might be a deer or perhaps a fox. But then he saw the amber eyes. Two of them, reflecting the dappled sunlight that filtered through the canopy. A young brown bear emerged slowly, its small rounded ears twitching, nose lifted as it sniffed the air. Its fur glistened in streaks of gold, damp with morning dew, and its claws clicked lightly against the rocks. Alex froze, every instinct screaming caution, every horror story about wild encounters flashing through his mind. But the bear didn't charge, didn't growl, didn't even make a sudden move toward him. It simply studied him. Time seemed to stretch. The forest around them held its breath. A bird cawed sharply in the distance, and both hiker and bear flinched in unison. The bear took a tentative step forward, tilting its head slightly as if weighing the strange figure before it. Alex's pulse hammered against his chest. He wanted to move, to retreat, yet a part of him was fascinated, unable to look away. He slowly crouched, making himself smaller, remembering advice from wildlife guides. Never turn your back, never run. He spoke softly, his voice almost a whisper, blending with the wind rustling the pine needles. "It's okay," he said, though he wasn't sure if he meant the bear or himself. The young bear sniffed the air again, paws shuffling in a cautious rhythm, sniffing, assessing, curious but not hostile. Alex observed every subtle movement, the flick of an ear, the slight twitch of the tail, the way its weight shifted from paw to paw. He noticed the bear's eyes, intelligent, watchful, almost human in their intensity. He realized this was not just an animal acting on instinct. This was a creature making choices, evaluating whether he posed a threat. Minutes passed, or maybe seconds, it was impossible to tell. Each rustle of leaves or crack of a twig sent a jolt through Alex's body. But he remained still, focusing on his breathing, trying to project calm. The bear inched closer, sniffing the air near Alex's boot, then paused. Its nose wrinkled, sniffing again as if trying to decode the scent of the hiker and the forest around him. Alex's mind raced. Should he reach for his camera? Should he slowly back away? Every possible misstep felt dangerous, yet a strange trust seemed to form in the stillness. The bear lowered itself slightly, sniffing cautiously at the base of a tree near Alex, its movements gentle, non-threatening. He realized then that the bear was as curious about him as he was about it, a shared moment of mutual observation. And then, just as the tension peaked, the bear lifted its paw, frozen mid-step, eyes locked onto Alex. A decision was being made in that gaze, friend, foe, or perhaps something in between. Alex's heart skipped a beat. What would happen next? Would this young bear retreat into the shadows or continue its cautious approach? He could feel the weight of the forest's silence pressing in around them, every sound amplified, every movement loaded with consequence. The moment hung suspended, fragile as a spider's web. Alex could almost hear the thoughts of the bear, feel the curiosity vibrating through its muscles, see the life of the wild in its eyes. And in that split second he understood. This encounter would change something fundamental about the way he saw the forest, and the creatures that lived in it. The bear takes another small step closer, paw lifted mid-air, and Alex realizes that this is no ordinary meeting. Friend or threat? There is no turning back now. The young bear froze for a moment, its amber eyes fixed on Alex. The hiker held his breath, muscles tense, heart pounding like a drum inside his chest. He could feel the weight of every leaf, every twig, every bird call pressing against the quiet of the forest. The bear's paw twitched again, tentative, almost testing the boundaries of this new and uncertain interaction. Alex remained still, sinking slowly to the forest floor, sitting cross-legged on a bed of fallen pine needles. He lowered his gaze to avoid direct eye contact, remembering the advice that any sudden movement might trigger fear, or worse, aggression. The bear's head tilted slightly to one side, sniffing the air. Its small nostrils flared as it took in the mixture of human scent, damp pine, and the earthy aroma of moss and fallen leaves. Alex exhaled slowly, trying to match the rhythm of the forest around him. He whispered softly, almost to himself, "It's okay. I'm not going to hurt you." The sound of his voice seemed to carry a weight in the stillness, floating gently on the breeze. The bear blinked slowly as if acknowledging him, though whether out of understanding or curiosity, Alex could not tell. Minutes stretched on, and yet neither moved. The bear inched closer, paw lifted, testing the space between them. Alex felt an odd sense of anticipation, a mix of fear and awe. He had spent countless hours hiking through remote wilderness, yet he had never encountered such a close, unguarded view of a wild animal. His mind ran through every safety protocol he had learned. Remain calm, avoid sudden movements, speak softly, do not attempt to touch. And still, the raw intimacy of this moment sent a thrill through him. The bear sniffed the ground near Alex's boot, then lifted its head, ears swiveling toward the faint sound of running water in the distance. The hiker followed its gaze and realized he could see the faint shimmer of a creek through the trees. He wondered if the bear had been observing him all along or if it had simply been drawn to the scent of the water. Either way, the animal was not aggressive. It was calculating, cautious, and curiously brave. Alex slowly reached into his backpack, careful to move slowly enough that the bear would not mistake the motion for a threat. He pulled out a small notebook and pen, tools he usually used to document wildlife sightings from a safe distance. But today the bear was closer than he had ever been to any creature in the wild. He decided not to record, not yet. Instead, he simply sat quietly, breathing steadily, his eyes occasionally flicking toward the bear to gauge its intentions. The bear moved again, this time circling a few feet to the side, sniffing at a patch of moss-covered rocks. Alex stayed still, heart hammering, every instinct telling him to remain patient. And then, slowly, the bear paused and looked back at him. That moment, brief, fragile, loaded with unspoken understanding, felt monumental. It was as if the bear were testing him, measuring the space between fear and trust, curiosity and caution. Hours could have passed in that forest clearing, yet time seemed suspended. Alex realized that the bear's approach was deliberate. It was not driven solely by hunger or instinct, but by an undeniable curiosity, a desire to understand and investigate the strange human before it. And in response, Alex felt a surge of calm confidence. By remaining still and respectful, he had earned a tentative acknowledgement of his presence. Then, without warning, a snapping twig sounded behind him. Both Alex and the bear flinched. The bear's ears flattened slightly, and it froze mid-step, eyes darting toward the source of the sound. Alex's pulse surged. Was it another hiker? Another animal? The tension rippled through the air, a sudden reminder of how fragile this newfound connection was. The bear's body tenses as it peers into the shadows. For a heartbeat, it looks like it might retreat, or it might take another step closer, breaking the invisible barrier between human and wild. Alex held his breath, knowing that the next moment could define the trajectory of their unexpected encounter. The forest seemed to hold its breath. Alex's heart was still pounding, but a strange calm had settled over him, like the quiet after a sudden storm. The young bear crouched slightly, paws pressing into the soft, pine needle-covered ground, watching Alex with an intensity that was almost human. There was no aggression in its posture, only curiosity, caution, and the faintest glimmer of recognition, as though it understood that Alex posed no immediate threat. Alex exhaled slowly, aware that every movement, every flick of his hand, could change the delicate balance between them. He extended his hand, not toward the bear, but slightly out to the side, a gesture of non-threat and invitation. The bear's nose twitched. It tilted its head, amber eyes narrowing as it studied the strange human ritual. Then, with the tiniest of movements, it shifted one paw forward, almost imperceptibly, as if testing the invisible boundary that separated them. In that moment, Alex realized that communication didn't always require words. Every subtle shift of posture, every flick of an ear, every glance carried meaning. He could almost feel the bear's thought process, its tentative calculation of risk versus curiosity. The forest seemed to amplify these silent signals, the rustling leaves, the whisper of the wind, the distant gurgle of the creek, all forming a backdrop to this quiet, unspoken conversation. Alex lowered his gaze, blinking slowly to signal peace. He whispered again, softer this time, "It's okay. I'm not going anywhere." The bear seemed to absorb the sound, its body relaxing fractionally, ears twitching less, tail swaying lightly. The tension in the air softened just enough to create a fragile bridge of trust. It was extraordinary. He had never imagined that such a powerful wild creature could convey understanding without a single sound. The bear inched forward again, paw landing lightly on a moss-covered rock. Alex stayed still, feeling the vibration of the forest beneath him, listening to the faint rustle of leaves as the bear explored its immediate surroundings. Every movement was deliberate, calculated, full of awareness. This was a creature fully in tune with its environment, aware of both danger and opportunity, yet curious enough to engage with the human before it. Alex realized that this silent communication was a two-way street. He had to show restraint, patience, and respect, but he also had to read the bear's subtle cues, the tilt of its head, the shifting weight of its paws, the direction of its gaze. He was learning a language older than words, rooted in instinct, observation, and empathy. And the bear seemed to respond in kind, testing him, gauging his reactions, silently asking, "Can you be trusted? Will you respect my space?" Suddenly the bear stopped, nose lifted high, sniffing the wind. Alex followed its gaze and noticed a small cluster of footprints in the damp soil nearby, fresh prints of a larger adult bear. His stomach tightened. The young bear's ears perked sharply, and it crouched slightly, ready to retreat or defend itself. Alex froze, understanding the unspoken tension. This encounter could escalate in an instant. The wind shifted, carrying the scent clearly now, the unmistakable, powerful odor of a mother bear somewhere in the dense undergrowth. The young bear's body stiffened, and it glanced briefly at Alex, then back at the direction of the prints. There was fear, yes, but also a recognition of responsibility. It was still young, yet already aware of the invisible rules of survival. Alex held his position, heart hammering, captivated by the depth of the bear's awareness. Every instinct screamed caution, yet something extraordinary was unfolding. The bear had not fled. It had not attacked. Instead, it continued to engage in this fragile dance of observation and trust. The young bear lifts its head, ears forward, nose twitching, and then lets out a soft, almost inaudible grunt. Alex freezes. Is it a call? A warning? Or an invitation to step closer into the wild rhythm of this unexpected friendship? Time seemed to stretch as the young bear remained still, its amber eyes locked on Alex. Every muscle in its body coiled with the quiet tension of a predator that could turn on a dime, or melt into the forest at the first hint of danger. Yet, there was something else there too, curiosity tempered by intelligence, wariness softened by an instinctual sense of fairness. Alex could feel it, the subtle vibration of life in this clearing, every breath, every twitch, every heartbeat of the bear echoing in his own chest. Then, slowly, the bear did something unexpected. It lowered its head, snout hovering just above the forest floor, and began nudging a small pine cone with its nose. Alex noticed the deliberate caution in the gesture. The bear wasn't throwing itself forward recklessly, wasn't charging with abandon, but instead was testing the boundaries, trying to gauge the safety of its surroundings, including the strange, seated human nearby. Alex exhaled quietly, hands resting calmly on his knees. "It's okay," he whispered. "You don't need to worry." His voice was soft, deliberate, a low murmur that seemed to blend seamlessly with the rustling of leaves and the distant babble of the creek. The bear paused, ears flicking, then glanced toward him. There was no threat in Alex's posture, no sudden movement, no erratic energy, just quiet patience, a willingness to coexist peacefully. The bear shifted slightly, one paw brushing against the pine needles, and then nudged the pine cone closer to Alex's boots. The gesture was small, almost imperceptible yet monumental. It was the first overt sign of trust. The young bear was acknowledging his presence, inviting him, silently, subtly, to share in this fleeting moment of understanding. Alex's heart swelled, a mixture of awe, relief, and something deeper, almost like a quiet joy that only comes when witnessing the raw, unfiltered wonder of the wild. Alex moved carefully, lowering his hand slowly to the ground, palm up, fingers relaxed. The bear froze for a heartbeat, then shifted its weight, sniffed the extended hand, and retreated just a few inches. It was a cautious dance, a delicate negotiation where each side measured intention and trust. The forest seemed to hold its breath, the dappled sunlight catching the bear's fur in a warm, golden glow. Minutes passed in silence, punctuated only by the soft rustle of leaves and the distant call of a crow. The young bear nudged the pine cone again, and this time, it made a subtle circling motion, almost as if trying to initiate play, or perhaps simply to observe Alex's reaction. The hiker smiled faintly, understanding the significance. The bear was testing him, offering a bridge of connection and waiting for him to respond with respect, patience, and calm. Alex remained still, eyes flicking gently to the bear, lips curving in a slow, reassuring smile. He whispered almost inaudibly, "I see you, and I respect you." The bear's ears twitched, and it took a cautious step forward. The gesture, though small, carried immense weight. It was the first tangible sign that the invisible barrier between human and wild had begun to dissolve. Trust, once a distant possibility, now seemed like a fragile reality. Then, just as Alex reached out slightly to lower himself closer to the bear's level, a sharp rustling came from the nearby underbrush. The young bear's ears flattened, body tensed, and its amber eyes flicked toward the sound. Alex's heart leapt. Was it another animal? Another human? Or perhaps the mother bear returning to the area? The bear's paw hovers over the pine cone, nostrils flaring, body taut. Every instinct tells it that danger may be near, or an opportunity for further trust. Alex waits, breath shallow, knowing that the next moment could deepen their fragile bond, or shatter it completely. The forest seemed to breathe alongside them. Alex's heart still thumped, but the rigid tension that had gripped him began to ease. The young bear, sensing that the human posed no threat, began to experiment with more fluid, natural movements. Its paws brushed against fallen branches, nudged small rocks, and even pawed at the soft carpet of pine needles in playful exploratory gestures. Alex watched, fascinated, recognizing that these small actions were a form of communication, a nonverbal test of connection. Slowly, carefully, Alex reached into his backpack and pulled out a small, brightly colored cloth he had intended for first aid. He tossed it gently toward the bear, letting it land a few feet away. The bear froze for a moment, ears perked, then tilted its head curiously. After a heartbeat, it pounced lightly on the cloth, paws grasping, teeth nibbling gently. It was a cautious, tentative play, yet the joy radiating from the bear was unmistakable. Alex laughed quietly, a low, warm sound that carried softly through the trees. "Not bad," he murmured, keeping his voice calm and friendly. The bear responded by nudging the cloth toward him, pawing it again, a silent invitation for him to join. Alex leaned forward, reaching out carefully, letting his fingers brush against the edge of the cloth. The bear recoiled slightly, startled by the sudden contact, but not aggressively, merely curious, assessing, learning that he could be trusted in closer proximity. The tension that had defined their first encounter now gave way to something entirely new, the fragile beginnings of play, trust, and mutual curiosity. The bear's movements grew more confident, and Alex mirrored them cautiously, creating a rhythm of interaction. Each gesture, each careful motion, was a lesson in respect and patience. It was a delicate balance, too sudden and the trust could shatter, too slow and the connection might never deepen. Alex could see the intelligence in the bear's amber eyes. This wasn't mere instinct or hunger-driven behavior. The bear was observing, adapting, and responding to his actions in real time. Every paw swipe, every playful nudge was calculated. It was experimenting with social behaviors, recognizing that this human could be an ally rather than a threat. The bear rolled onto its back, claws tucked, exposing its belly, a classic gesture in bear social behavior that signals trust and submission. Alex froze, understanding the weight of the moment. He lowered himself further, sitting cross-legged, hands resting on his knees, letting the bear dictate the pace of interaction. The sunlight filtered through the trees, illuminating the bear's fur with golden highlights and casting long shadows across the forest floor. Suddenly, a breeze carried a distant sound, the faint chatter of hikers somewhere on a trail beyond the clearing. The young bear's ears twitched, and it lifted its head, eyes flicking toward the direction of the sound. Alex's pulse quickened. He knew that with a sudden disturbance, the bear could bolt, leaving their fragile bond behind in an instant. He remained motionless, whispering softly, "It's okay, you're safe here." The bear hesitated, then returned its attention to the cloth, nudging it back toward Alex. The small game continued, a ritual of trust forming between human and bear, a mutual acknowledgement of presence, patience, and respect. Time seemed suspended in the golden light of the forest, with the sounds of distant wildlife and rustling leaves providing a gentle soundtrack to this unexpected friendship. As the bear pawed the cloth one last time, a rustle came from the underbrush, larger, heavier than before. The young bear froze, ears pinned, and looked to Alex, a question in its gaze. Was this the return of its mother? Or something else entirely? Alex held his breath, heart pounding, aware that their playful moment might shift to a test of survival in the next heartbeat. The rustling grew louder, and the soft crunch of leaves under heavier paws announced the arrival of another presence. Alex's pulse quickened as he realized the unmistakable weight of a fully grown grizzly moving through the underbrush. The young bear froze instantly, ears flattened, eyes wide with both fear and recognition. Alex remained completely still, palms resting on his knees, knowing that any sudden movement could trigger defensive behavior. Then she appeared, a massive, powerful grizzly, her fur a rich blend of brown and gold, eyes sharp and assessing. She moved with grace, muscles rippling beneath her thick coat, every step deliberate, every sense alert. She stopped a few yards away, nose twitching, nostrils flaring as she picked up the scent of Alex and the smaller bear. The mother's gaze swept over the scene, lingering on her cub, then on the human intruder in their territory. The young bear hesitated, then slowly inched toward its mother, glancing back at Alex with a silent plea for reassurance. The mother's stance was tense, her body coiled like a spring, yet there was no immediate aggression. Instead, she let out a low, resonant growl, part warning, part acknowledgement. Alex's stomach tightened. He could feel the raw power radiating from her, a force of nature that could end him in moments if threatened. But he also noticed something in her eyes: curiosity, intelligence, and a measure of calm. She wasn't immediately attacking. She was assessing, evaluating the risk and the intentions of this human who had somehow engaged her cub without causing harm. Alex slowly raised a hand, palm outward in a gesture of non-threat. "I don't mean any harm," he whispered, voice soft, deliberate. The words carried no scent, no sudden movement, just calm, careful respect. The mother bear's eyes flicked back to her cub, who had now nestled slightly behind her, but still kept one amber eye on Alex. Then, in a surprising display, the mother stepped forward just a few feet, lowering her massive head as she sniffed the air around Alex. It was a careful, tentative inspection, measured, precise. Alex remained motionless, holding his breath, aware that one wrong gesture could turn this delicate moment into chaos. Seconds stretched into an eternity as mother and human studied each other. The young bear, emboldened by Alex's stillness, padded forward a few steps, brushing against his leg. The mother's ears twitched, a subtle acknowledgement that she was monitoring but not yet threatening. Alex could feel the unspoken communication between mother and cub, the invisible bond that guided their actions with instinctual precision. Slowly the tension began to ease. The mother bear relaxed her stance slightly, yet remained alert, a sentinel protecting her young. Alex's heart rate gradually returned to normal, replaced by awe. He realized he was witnessing something rare, not just a bear mother defending her cub, but an unspoken negotiation of trust between human and wild. The bears weren't ignoring him, they were testing him, measuring his respect, patience, and composure. Alex knelt a little lower, letting his eyes meet the mother's, showing neither fear nor dominance. "I respect you," he whispered, as much for himself as for her. The mother's amber gaze lingered, then slowly, almost imperceptibly, she shifted, allowing the cub to play with the cloth once more. It was a subtle, profound gesture, an acceptance of his presence without full trust, a fragile bridge between species that had never met before. Just as Alex exhaled, thinking the tension had eased, the underbrush rustled again, closer this time, heavier, with an unfamiliar scent. The mother stiffened instantly, ears pinning, growl rising from deep within her chest. Alex froze, realizing that their delicate moment of trust was about to face a new, unpredictable test. The forest held its breath. The rustling in the underbrush grew louder, accompanied by snapping twigs and the crunch of dry leaves beneath heavy, unfamiliar paws. Alex's chest tightened. The mother bear's growl deepened, vibrating through the clearing like a warning drumbeat. The young cub pressed closer against her, but its curiosity still flickered in amber eyes, an instinctive pull toward play and exploration. Alex stayed perfectly still, every fiber of his being alert. He knew this was a test. The bears were assessing whether he could remain calm under pressure. One wrong move, one panicked breath, and the fragile trust he had built could shatter instantly. The underbrush rustled again, closer now, and a massive shadow loomed at the edge of the clearing. Alex's stomach sank as he realized another adult bear was approaching. Likely a male, given the size and deliberate, heavy stride. The mother bear's body tensed. Her muscles coiled beneath thick fur, claws extending slightly from their sheaths. She let out a low, guttural growl that reverberated through the trees, a warning to the intruder. This was her territory, her cub, and no threat would go unanswered. The cub whimpered softly but didn't retreat, clearly looking to Alex as if asking for his calm assurance. Alex remained unmoving, his mind racing through every scenario he had learned from his wildlife training. The male bear paused at the edge of the clearing, sniffing the air, muscles rippling under golden-brown fur. He wasn't immediately aggressive, he was curious, calculating. But the tension in the clearing was palpable, thick enough to taste. The mother bear advanced slightly, positioning herself between Alex, her cub, and the approaching male. She lowered her head, ears flat, eyes locked on the intruder, silent but unmistakable. "Stay away." Alex exhaled slowly, letting his voice drop into a calm murmur. "It's okay," he whispered, not just to himself but to the cub and mother. His hands remained visible, relaxed. The male bear sniffed again, then shifted its massive weight slightly, hesitant. It was a delicate standoff, a test of courage, patience, and understanding. Minutes passed like hours. The mother bear's growl softened into a low rumble as the male circled slowly, assessing. The cub padded forward a few cautious steps, testing the male's reaction. Alex noticed the subtle interplay of body language, the flick of a tail, the tilt of a head, the shifting weight, all messages in a silent, ancient language that only bears fully understood. He marveled at the intelligence, awareness, and nuance of their interactions. Finally, the male bear turned and padded away into the shadows, disappearing among the trees, leaving the mother and cub behind. The tension in the clearing melted slightly, but Alex didn't move immediately. He wanted to let the bear's relief, and his own, settle naturally. The mother bear relaxed her stance, ears rising, and allowed the cub to paw playfully at the cloth once more. Alex felt the weight of relief, understanding that their trust had survived a true test of courage. The moment was brief yet profound. Alex realized that in the wilderness trust was not given. It was earned carefully, patiently, and respectfully. The bears had assessed him, gauging his reaction under stress, and had accepted him at least tentatively as a neutral presence. He knew this trust was fragile and had to be treated with reverence. Just as Alex allowed himself a small, quiet smile, a sharp sound echoed from the far side of the clearing. A rifle shot, distant but unmistakable. The mother bear's ears pinned instantly and the cub froze, glancing at Alex with wide eyes. Danger wasn't over. Something human had intruded, and their fragile moment of trust was about to face an entirely new challenge. The echo of the rifle shot hung in the air, reverberating through the dense forest like a sudden crack of doom. The mother bear stiffened instantly, muscles coiled like springs under her thick fur. Her eyes, wide and alert, scanned the perimeter, nostrils flaring, ears swiveling at every faint rustle. The cub pressed itself close against her side, trembling slightly, ears flat, letting out a soft whine. Alex's heart pounded in sync with the rapid thump of the cub's tiny paws. He knew that any sudden movement could escalate the situation dangerously. Alex remained motionless, hands raised slightly but relaxed, palms open, a universal gesture of non-threat he had practiced countless times. The mother bear let out a guttural growl, deep and resonant, a warning that this time the danger wasn't another bear, it was human. Her eyes flicked toward Alex, a silent question passing between them. Could he be trusted to remain calm in the presence of this new threat? He nodded ever so slightly, barely perceptible, a gesture of reassurance. The cub's eyes, still large and amber, followed the direction of the sound, a mix of fear and curiosity reflecting in them. The mother nudged the cub with her massive paw, guiding it toward a thicker patch of underbrush for cover. Alex understood. She wasn't fleeing but repositioning, maintaining control and protection of her young. The way she moved was deliberate, calculated, each step precise. She was teaching her cub a vital lesson. Threats could come from anywhere and vigilance was survival. Suddenly another shot cracked through the air, closer this time. The mother bear reacted immediately, spinning toward the sound with a swiftness that belied her massive frame. Her growl deepened, a sound that resonated with primal authority, sending a ripple of tension through the clearing. Alex instinctively ducked slightly behind a tree, careful not to obscure the mother's line of sight but still keeping himself safe. Every nerve in his body screamed caution, every instinct honed for survival in the wild. The forest seemed to hold its breath. Birds fell silent, leaves stopped rustling, and even the wind seemed to pause. The mother bear's attention remained laser-focused, scanning the edge of the clearing for the source of the threat. She stood as a sentinel, the embodiment of protective strength. The cub, sensing the gravity of the situation, crouched low, ears pinned, but didn't run. There was trust here, a delicate bond between mother, cub, and now cautiously Alex. Minutes dragged by, the tension stretching like a taut wire. Then, from the far edge of the clearing, a figure emerged, partially obscured by the shadows of tall pines. Alex could make out a hunter, rifle in hand, moving cautiously. The mother bear lowered her massive head slightly, body still coiled, growling softly, a warning but not yet an attack. The hunter froze, seemingly understanding the unspoken rules of this encounter. One wrong move and consequences would be swift and unforgiving. Alex exhaled slowly, letting his calmness ripple toward the mother bear. He whispered softly, "It's okay. I won't let anything happen to you or your cub." His voice carried no threat, only reassurance. The mother bear's ears flicked toward him as if acknowledging his words, yet her vigilance didn't waver. This was her territory, her cub, and she was teaching both of them the hard lesson of respect, patience, and caution in a world that could turn dangerous in an instant. Just as Alex thought the immediate danger had passed, the hunter made a sudden step forward, rustling leaves loudly. The mother bear's growl rose into a roar that shook the surrounding trees, echoing like thunder through the forest. The cub whimpered and looked to Alex, eyes wide with fear. Alex knew in that instant that this confrontation could escalate to life-threatening chaos in seconds. The forest trembled with the echo of the mother bear's roar, reverberating through the dense pines like rolling thunder. The hunter froze, a flicker of hesitation crossing his face, his rifle wavering in the fading light. Alex's pulse raced, yet his body remained steady, every muscle controlled, every breath measured. He understood that now was the critical moment. A single rash movement could provoke chaos, but a calm, deliberate step could diffuse tension. The cub, sensing the mother's strength yet overwhelmed by fear, pressed itself closer to Alex's side. Its soft whimpers pierced the forest's tension, a small but poignant reminder of the stakes at hand. Alex crouched slightly, hands raised in a non-threatening gesture, his voice gentle yet firm. "It's okay. Everything's going to be fine," he murmured, almost a whisper, yet carrying the weight of reassurance. The cub looked up at him, eyes wide, amber reflecting the slanting sunlight. The mother bear, still growling softly, shifted her weight slightly, signaling both vigilance and trust. She had allowed Alex to stand in her presence without aggression, a silent acknowledgement that he was no immediate threat. But the hunter's presence remained a volatile unknown, a variable that could shatter the delicate balance at any second. Alex knew instinctively that the next few moments would define whether trust could survive in the wilderness, or whether fear and chaos would erupt. With careful, deliberate movements, Alex took a step forward, slow and measured. He spoke again, his voice calm, unwavering. "We're not here to harm anyone." Each word was intentional, designed to communicate understanding and respect. The mother bear's ears flicked toward him, watching, assessing every motion, while the cub's small paw brushed lightly against his leg. Alex felt the weight of responsibility. This wasn't just about him anymore. The cub's trust, the mother's vigilance, and the forest's fragile equilibrium rested on his ability to remain composed. The hunter, eyes wide, seemed to absorb the tension, uncertainty replacing aggression. His rifle lowered slightly, the harsh edge of human threat softening under the forest's unspoken rules. The mother bear's growl tapered into a low rumble, her stance remaining protective but no longer overtly aggressive. The cub began to shift its position, inching toward Alex, reassured by his calm presence. Minutes felt like hours as the standoff slowly transformed into cautious observation. Alex's gaze never wavered from the bear's, every movement precise, deliberate. He understood that patience and respect were the keys to navigating the wilderness safely. Nature was not a place for fear-driven reactions. It required empathy, understanding, and courage, the courage to step forward even when uncertainty loomed. Finally, the hunter took a small step back, lowering his rifle entirely. The mother bear's body relaxed subtly, signaling the first sign of resolution. She nudged the cub gently, guiding it toward a safer spot beneath a thicket of pines. Alex exhaled slowly, realizing that the moment of potential disaster had passed, not through force but through calmness, respect, and courage. Just as Alex began to relax, he noticed movement further along the ridge. A second hunter, unseen until now, observing the clearing with binoculars. The mother bear stiffened instantly, growl rising again, eyes darting toward the new threat. Alex's pulse quickened. The test of courage wasn't over, it had only escalated. The forest seemed to exhale as tension slowly lifted. The second hunter, a silhouette against the fading light, hesitated and then disappeared down the ridge, leaving the clearing to its natural guardians. The mother bear, still alert but visibly calmer, nudged her cub forward. The little one, once trembling with fear, now pressed close to Alex's leg as if acknowledging him as a friend in the wilderness. A bridge between species formed not by dominance but by trust. Alex knelt slowly, keeping his movements measured and deliberate. "It's okay," he whispered, his voice a gentle thread weaving through the forest's stillness. The cub sniffed at his hand, tentative at first, and then pressed its soft head against his palm. Alex's chest tightened with an unfamiliar warmth. He realized this moment was rare and fragile, a connection formed not by words, but by shared respect, calm, and courage. The mother bear circled once, her eyes lingering on Alex, the amber hue reflecting a mix of caution and acknowledgement. She wasn't fully relaxed, but she recognized that Alex had proven himself to be a neutral force, neither predator nor threat. Slowly she turned back toward the deeper forest, her cub trotting alongside her, glancing back occasionally. Alex stood, feeling the weight of the encounter settle in his bones. It was over for now, but the memory of raw, unfiltered wilderness would stay with him forever. Walking back along the narrow trail toward the ranger station, Alex's mind replayed every instant. The growls, the rustling underbrush, the pounding of hearts in sync with danger and relief. He thought of the mother bear's unwavering vigilance, the cub's fragile trust, and the delicate line humans walked when entering a world that wasn't theirs. There was a lesson here. The wilderness demanded respect, patience, and courage, and when met with these qualities, it could respond with unexpected friendship. Later, by the warmth of the ranger station fire, Alex shared the story with his colleagues, recounting each heartbeat, each cautious step, each moment of mutual understanding. He described the cub's curious gaze, the mother's commanding presence, and the subtle, unspoken agreement that had allowed danger to pass without violence. His colleagues listened, enraptured, sensing the authenticity of the encounter. Some expressed disbelief, others awe, but all agreed that moments like this reminded them why they had chosen lives intertwined with the wild. Alex returned to the forest the following morning, not with the intent to see the bears again, but to ensure that their territory remained undisturbed, their paths free from human interference. He spotted tracks near the clearing, the large paw prints of the mother, smaller imprints of the cub. He smiled softly, understanding that the bond forged wasn't one of possession, but of respect. They had accepted his presence because he had acknowledged their power, their vulnerability, and their right to live freely. The cub's paw prints disappeared into the thick undergrowth, a reminder that in the wilderness, connections are fleeting yet profound. Alex looked up at the canopy, sunlight spilling through the branches, and whispered a promise, "I'll respect your world always." The forest seemed to hum in quiet agreement, a subtle affirmation of trust, courage, and empathy. What would you have done if you had been in Alex's shoes? Could you have remained calm and respectful in the face of such raw wilderness tension? Comment below and share your thoughts. If you were moved by Alex's courage and the bond he formed with the bears, don't forget to like and subscribe for more real-life stories of human-animal encounters in the wild.